Alright guys, today I'll be reviewing Jackrabbit at Seabreeze. This is one of my favorite coasters pretty much anywhere, and while maybe it's not as crazy as a ride like Sky Rush or even King Ka, it's still a phenomenal coaster and my personal favorite in New York, and I'll explain why. This ride opened all the way back in 1920, and it still has the record as the oldest continuously operating coaster in North America, and it's a really good coaster to have that title. Like, this isn't Leap the Dips or Scenic Railway at Luna Park or anything. This thing is legit. But first, let's talk about some things other than the layout. This thing's right up at the front of the park if you're using the first parking lot. If you're using the water park parking lot, then it's a bit of ways, but assuming you're coming in the first parking lot, it's going to be right there to the right. Everyone goes here first. I would go to bobsleds first because that always gets a huge line later on. But it's not like crowds are going to be a huge issue at Seabreeze anyway. The line for this thing usually doesn't get more than 10 minutes. I've seen this thing get like 30 minutes at worst, and that was like Labor Day weekend. So, yeah, this thing doesn't get very long lines, and neither does anything at Seabreeze, really. You can pretty much come here any day of the year and expect at least somewhat low crowds, at least compared to other parks. This queue doesn't have any theming, the ride doesn't have any theming, but it looks amazing. It's got that classic white wooden color palette. It looks amazing, especially with the terrain. So you're going to board your trains. These are Morgan trains, and they're very good. You can definitely get some good room with these things. Definitely, don't try to kill yourself, but don't, completely staple yourself to death either, because that can ruin a ride. But now you're going to get into your main layout. You're going to start by turning to the right. You're going to get a good view of the log flume, flyers, all that stuff. Good view of some trees, but yeah, there's really nothing to look out here and on the lift hill. The lift hill is kind of peaceful. I actually like the sound of this lift hill. I think it's better than the Arrow lift hill sound, which is kind of weird, but yeah. Anyways, let's get on to the main layout. You're going to start off with a pretty lackluster first drop and a pretty lackluster first hill, I would say. The first two airtime moments really don't do anything in the front and barely do anything in the back. I will say this is 100% a front row coaster. You are an absolute idiot if you ride anywhere but the front on this thing. The front, oh my god, the front hits so hard. And in the back, it's still like a top 100 coaster for me. It's still fun. But in the front, it's almost a top 25 coaster for me. It's so good. So you have to ride towards the front on this thing. And this is one where I'd say, even if you don't get one of the first two rows, still just get as close to the front as you can. Do not go for the back. This ride is very smooth, but again, the forces aren't even close to as good in the back. But as you come over the second hill, you're going to get some good airtime anywhere, but especially in that front row, you're going to get a nice pop of floater airtime. And then you hit either the second strongest or strongest moment on the ride if you're in the front. And I'm just going to say everything as if you're in the front because that's where you should be riding. But yeah, this step up into this turnaround is absurd. You get some of the strongest airtime you'll pretty much find on any wooden coaster. It's crazy. It feels like a airtime hill on Phoenix, and a strong one too. This hill is amazing. I can't get enough of it. Then you're going to hit this turnaround, and you'll get some decent laterals throughout it. You're going to hit this double down, and it's nothing special, but I mean, it's fine. You just hit one of the craziest elements on any wood coaster. So then after this, you're going to kind of pop up. And this is the one element on the ride besides the first drop that I like more in the back. Because it really doesn't do a whole lot up front. But in the back, you get some decent floater airtime. But then you hit this camelback right before the second turnaround. And oh my god, this thing launches you. It'll launch you anywhere. But again, in the front row, it absolutely sends you out of there. Then you'll hit another great pop of airtime coming into the next turnaround. You'll get some even more sustained laterals throughout this thing, and they're pretty strong too. You're going to hit a tunnel, and the dip out of this tunnel really doesn't do a whole lot. But there's a pop coming out of the tunnel into the final brake run. And get ready for this thing if you're in the front row. Because, oh my God, it's definitely not the strongest moment on any wood coaster. There's 4 moments on El Toro I can name. There's the finale on Phoenix. But other than those, this moment is the strongest moment on any wooden coaster I've been on. This pop out of the tunnel, oh my God, you go flying. It's great sustained ejector airtime until you hit those brakes. And they actually installed new brakes this year, so it's not as manual as it was back in the day. They still have the levers and everything, but they're not as useful as they used to be. You used to have to be ready for that train to come in, because if you weren't, yeah, it was flying around that turn and it would not be good. But nowadays, I'm pretty sure that wouldn't pass safety inspections or whatever. So yeah, brakes it is, but oh well. This still feels like a really classic ride. It has a bit of a wood coaster rumble without being too rough. And again, it's just perfect. This is the perfect classic wooden coaster. It really doesn't get better than this when it comes to classic woodies. So for Jackrabbit's final score, I'm going to give it a 899 out of 1,000. So basically, it's as close you can get to being a 9 out of 10 as you can get. I think it's a phenomenal ride for what it is. I just can't give it a score in the 900s just because, again, it's an airtime focused ride. It's a classic Woody, but that means you can only do so much. It's still in my top 30. I absolutely love this thing. It's my most ridden coaster, but yeah, it's getting an 899. Phenomenal score for this type of ride, but not quite as good as some other more modern coasters. But that's my review of Jackrabbit. Let me know what you guys think of this thing down in the comments below. If you've ridden it this year, how you guys think it's running. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.